Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Mustang Lake, outer edge, the mouth up here. It's just outside of San Antonio Bay. Get on this edge out here and work all this area right now. You know, our tides are starting to really fluctuate. We're starting to get to that point. We've had a few more fronts come in. Temperatures have dropped some. Water temps have dropped some. Notice that the water's dropping out a little bit more than normal. Than what we've had anyway. So you're starting a little bit more lower tides. So these will be areas that you want to start targeting these guts, these drop-offs like the ICW around these points, deeper water access that you want to get to. So these fish will come off these flats. So like right up in here in Mustang, you've got a mouth that comes up here. It's pretty soft in some of these areas, so be careful when you get out and wade. But you got shell beds and stuff. You got edges. You've got guts. You've got cuts. Those are all points of emphasis that you really want to target when your water starts to drop out. When the temperature starts to drop, you want to start targeting the mud areas. If you know areas that's got mud and you start getting your water temps that are in the low 60s, high 50s, those are areas that you're really going to want to target that mud because those fish are going to want to hang out over that because it's warmer. Main thing about it in here, your down souths have been really good. Your darker colors, chicken of the sea, magic grass, my two number ones that I go through all the time. A few other colors that have been doing well are the bone diamond and the white ice have both been really good in both the supermodel and the regular model up in this area here. Your corkies are really starting to come into play now. Start throwing those if you're good with those. If you're not so good with them, practice with them, work them, use them. It's a terrific bait, especially when the fish start to slow down a little bit, when the water temps start to get really, really cool or cold. These fish start to target these mud and clump shell grass bed areas, and a big old fat bait that comes floating through there with a little bit of rattler or not, depending on which corky you like to throw, becomes a really solid bait because those fish are not really particularly want to eat a lot because they want to conserve as much energy as possible. So they'll eat a bigger bait typically, or normally they can do that. Now, obviously, your tides are going to be a big factor, your majors and minors when you hit these areas, when you work these baits. That's all a consideration that you really need to take part of in when you go fish these types of areas like Mustang. Back shoreline, great mud across that back there, a little mixed sand that's in there as well on a beautiful day after a front blows through. Get a big old high bluebird sky that's in here, and it'll kind of calm down somewhat. And you'll get that water to warm up. So just remember those things. Remember those key points like that you really want to do and you really want to work. All these areas here, locating redfish, locating trout. Been nice bunch of box trout that are showing up. Redfish, you can pick up 1 and 2 here, either based on your top water. Marker 54 mullet run has been good too in the envy color, which is basically like a green, has done really well. You're mimicking what the bait is. So another one to consider there. Again, be methodical when you work these areas. Take your time working these areas. Your fish are going to be hanging in there. You got your bait working in there. So just take your time, work it, and you'll locate fish. Down here in Bray Cove, all these little shorelines that are here that are up and down these areas here, we've had some nice trout that's been holding on these. Been some good fish that have been in and out of here. There's been a few redfish that have been scattered out here. Again, the main baits for me have been the down south magic grass, chicken of the sea, bone diamond, supermodel, and regular model. Now, when you get into the big bluebird skies, downsize your baits. When you start getting into a full moon phase, downsize your baits because those fish typically are going to eat during the process of the night. In the process of the day, when you got a big high pressure up there, it puts pressure on those, and those fish are not going to be as hungry or want to eat as much. So offer them something a little bit smaller that will entice them to eat that bait that you're offering to them, and you'll have way more success doing that. Now, that said, a little bit deeper water like guts and channels and cuts that you can get into, say 5 foot, 6 foot of water, maybe not a whole lot of moving water through it, like over in Cedar Bayou. Bunch of water coming through there now. If you don't know, Cedar Bayou is open, so everything up in the Mesquite Bay areas, those that are connected to it, Ayers Bay, Carlos, San Antonio, Spalding area, North Aransas, all that, will all going to benefit from that water flow coming through Cedar Bayou, especially in Mesquite. All these areas up here in Bray, fishing's not going to do anything but get better. These fish are going to continue to flow through there. The bait's going to continue to flow through there when the migrations happen, when the time happens. But right now, areas that you really want to focus on, again, is your mud areas, grass, clump shell, not big shell beds, but clump shell. If you know areas like this, these are areas that you're really going to want to target. Down here in Bray, there's a few spots like that. Over in, up on the south shoreline in Mesquite, there's a few pockets like that. Up there in Ayers Dugout, Ayers Reef, you got some of those areas there. You may not want to necessarily get on Ayers Reef, but the dugout has some clump shell in those areas there as well, with mud scattered all around that. So those are areas that you really want to target and look for, especially when the water temps begin to drop. Or winds, another thing that you need to pay attention to. You know, when these fronts come through here, they pack a lot of punch, and you don't want to be caught in some of these open areas because you can put yourself in a little bit of jeopardy. So just remember those kind of things. Pay attention to those weather patterns. Pay attention to your majors and minors. See what's going on with that. That's going to another big key indicator for you when you're starting to locate these fish and what you need to throw at them to keep your bite to continue on. So all that stuff said, these areas up here, these are all prime areas that you want to look for. Again, bait's not going to be as prevalent right now because we're getting into cooler months and that bait's starting to run out of here. So that's why the artificial game becomes king during the winter months, because you can really trick those fish with something that really looks close to a live bait. And believe me, it's a lot of fun. If you haven't thrown very much artificials, wintertime's a time that you really should practice that and get after that, and you can really have a lot of good time locating these fish. Out off over Rattlesnake Point down here in Copeano. The big shell bars that are out here, there's nice cut-throughs that are here. Some of these are, if you fish this area, you know about the deep cut-throughs that are on some of these spots here. So when you work all this, be careful, because our tides are important right now, because you're going to have some big moving tides that are going to come in, come out different times of the day. Pay attention to that. That's where your majors and minors come into play for you. Make that be something that's an asset for you instead of a hindrance for you because you don't understand it. Take the time to understand what the majors and minors do for their especially for the artificial game. They're extremely important. You got big old nice bed out here, big shell bar, scattered shell, sand, pockets, a little bit of scattered deep grass in some of these areas. Been some nice box fish, trout-wise, have been hanging out here. White ice, bone diamond, and the regular model of down south. The Corkies have been good. The soft dines, the smaller version, not the XL. I know a lot of people like to throw the XL. I do as well, but right now, the smaller version, the regular version of the soft dine, has been money. It's been really good. So you can really work that bait well. You can make that thing rattle and dance and move around for you, and it waddles as it falls back down in there, and the fish have been just absolutely smacking that thing. Your shrimp. Marker 54 jerk shrimp has still been good, and you can either free line it or you can put it underneath the popping cork. It does not matter. Work some of these areas, work some of these guts, find that grass line. Get down in here in Pete's Bend, back here where you got some more mud. All these little areas back here, especially when that water level comes up, this area back here comes into play. Redfish Lodge is right there. You get on the back side of it. All this area back here is nice, wadeable areas. You can really wade this area very good, and it's protected, especially from a northwest breeze. You can set yourself up in there good, especially when you got some nice warming water. The bait starts to kind of flicker in there, and you can start locating your fish back in these areas. Again, the same baits that I was just talking about. If you like to throw a topwater bait, get back in here in a little bit shallower water. Again, the duck season's back up and going again, so make sure that you're paying attention to that. If you're running in back in there early in the morning, if you can see the decoys that are sitting out in some of these blinds, just be aware. More than likely, there's probably going to be a hunter in it, and you're not going to be able to want to fish around that. But get back into here, back around into Italian Bend off this point here, all back on this back shoreline. There's little back lake mouths that dump out into this. They've all been points of emphasis to fish your plastics, fish your topwaters, fish your corkies, based on what your water temp doing, what your water levels are doing. There's been some nice box fishing here, a few scattered trout, or a few scattered redfish back in here. Black drum has been, a few of those have been caught. And catching those on Little John, because they are scented. So that's be one thing that you can put in your back pocket there. Load one up in your tackle box. If you want to try to locate some black drum, put that Little John on there. But these are all areas back in this here in Copeano Bay that have been good. That's been pretty consistent based on what your winds are doing. Really emphasize, again, the majors and minors in these areas, and you'll locate some nice fish.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.